Welcome back, everybody, to Beer Garden Tennis. My name's Josh, and I'm here with the Culf man. Culfie, what's up?
Oh, just having fun watching Madrid, getting closer to the French Open, Josh. So, look, Rome's coming up. Novak is going to be back on deck for Rome. I'm looking forward to that. He's got to get some matches in before the French Open starts. And you know what with Nadal? What happens? How did he pull up from Madrid? And what's he do schedule-wise leading into the second Grand Slam of the year?
So I'm super keen to get to all of that, but I did end the last episode saying that I've always wanted to talk to someone that's played at a very high level of tennis, how you keep your motivation up to get back to your best when everyone else is also improving, which I think we could say about the top 10. Just the amount of firepower in the top 10 now is just so mind-boggling. Just to get into it now is maybe as hard as it's ever been, and then the top few guys are just on a different level right now than what maybe they have been for the last couple of years. So that's also intimidating. If you're a Felix, for example, an FAA, how does he, knowing how the peak of his game a couple of years ago when he was young, how does he now as a 23, 24-year-old, how does he keep pushing just to get back to that level, knowing maybe that's not even going to be good enough for a peak informed Novak or a Sinner Alcaraz probably any day of the week?
Yeah, well, you know, in regards to FAA, you know, we talk about that win over, you know, Casper Ruud there, where, you know, you come in and you're looking at form. That's one that, you know, you look at that match coming in, and it's one that you don't expect FAA to really win on the clay courts, you know. Yeah. But as I said, it's a performance where, you know, it's a reminder of, you know, the level that, you know, if you're speaking as if I'm FAA, it's a reminder for those viewers out there to say, hey, remember me? It's just a reminder of like, hey, this is what I'm capable of. Don't forget about me. So there's a little bit of, you know, these athletes, I definitely know they do. There's a lot of pride there. For one, that's the big thing.
Yep.
Where, you know, to go from, you know, just inside the top 10 in the world and you're feeling great. You're a high seed at all these events coming in, so you avoid you know, the very best of the best because you're one of the very best of the best. To falling down to, you know, around about that 30, 35, 40 in the world, where you know what, all of a sudden the draws, you know, they're not as comfortable or as easy, for lack of a better term,
yep.
Than when you were, you know, you're ranked in that around that top 10 mark. So, you know, there's pride there, you know, there's ego there, but also, you know, a guy like FAA, what he's hanging on to during that, I guess that fall from, you know, that rankings drop is, hey, my best is still good enough. My best, when I produce it, is still good enough. It's still top 5 level. Yep. You know, I can still win titles. I can still win ATP Tour titles. Regardless of whether they're 250 events, they're 500 events, or they're 1,000s, very, very difficult to win ATP Tour titles.
Yes.
You know, players can be top 100 in the world, play 10 years on tour, 10 years plus on tour, never, ever win an ATP Tour title.
Well, Casper Ruud just won his first ever title above 250 level.
Yes.
Yes. Barcelona was a 500 level event.
Yes. So
this is a guy that's made the World Tour finals and multiple Slam finals, hasn't won anything over 250 until a week and a half ago.
Yes.
And that's a guy that we think about now. As we've talked about, I think he deserves to be talked about a lot more regularly, but he's been in the conversation for multiple years. You would just to think he would have to have won something. That's how hard it is.
Yes.
And that's how good the top guys are, because you're going to have to beat one of them at some point.
That's right. And, well, you know, from a couple of episodes ago here at Beer Garden Tennis, we gave that crazy stat on Dimitrov when you know, he was in the spotlight on the show. You know, he won Brisbane this year, first ATP Tour title in 5 years.
Yeah, crazy.
You know, and you look at the level that he brought there in Brisbane for the week. And, you know, the players that he had to take down to win the title, and you go, how is that possible? Like, where if you were just an armchair fan and just, you know, and some of them are out there where they only watch tennis in Australia for you know, for the 4 weeks that all the players are down here, you'd look at that and go like, man, that guy's one of the best players I've ever seen. Yeah. You know, like, how the heck this is the first time he's won an event in 5 years. People would go like, How is that possible?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's an incredible like performance. You know, so that's what top 100 players are dealing with. And that's some of the top 100 players are not even able to get into the 250 events week in, week out. They've got to go and play in a challenger event. More on that, you know, when we explain how that works in terms of the World Tour. So, you know, to answer the question there, you know, FAA, he's holding on to the fact that, okay, like here's my level now. I'm 35 in the world. You know, I'm going to have to, you know, beat some of these really top guys in succession to get my ranking back up. So, you know, these draws become a little bit more comfortable early on. But he holds on to the fact that, hey man, like I've cleaned up a bunch of 250 titles. You know, I've been top 10. My best is still good enough. I've just got to produce that, you know, a little bit more consistently week in, week out to get my ranking back up to where it should be. And his ranking should be top 10. There's no question. He produces that kind of performance against Ruud, and you go, man, this guy's, you know, sort of just wasting his sort of talent and his overall package where he's ranked there and, you know, just inside the top 40. So it's that belief thing. You hold on to that, and, you know, the motivation's got to be high. If the motivation's not high, you are going to grind. You are going to look unhappy out there. You really are, you know what I mean? Because it's tough. It's competition. It's one-on-one competition. The guy on the other side of the net, you know, when they've got peak motivation, you know, they want to rip your heart and soul out. So if you're not there, you're going to have those mental struggles or mental demons, so to speak. So big win, FAA. So I'm really curious to see what he can produce against, well, I think arguably safe to say the best player in the world right now.
Correct. So someone that has been winning matches and they'll see a ranking boost and also just kind of has elevated himself onto the international stage, maybe as far as people recognising the name, is Jan-Lennard Struff, or Struffy, as you called him at the end of the last episode, which had me laugh and I had to hit stop on the record. So he won Munich last week, and it wasn't an easy run. It's not like he just had lucked into the final and played a blinder. He had a pretty solid run of wins there. So maybe can you tell us, Kulfi, your thoughts on Struff in general? And then I'll share how I viewed him for a while there, and then maybe how you think his game's changed, because it seems like a metamorphosis to me.
Yeah, I remember seeing Struff, or Struffy, as we like to...
He's affectionately known as.
Yeah, as I will refer to him, as Struffy. It was interesting because Josh said to me too, he goes, how many guys do you think on tour call him Struffy? And I said, only the Aussies would.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So Struffy, first saw him in Melbourne, and it wasn't even in the singles draw, actually. I remember seeing him live playing doubles at the Australian Open on one of the show courts. And, I was just sitting there, obviously observing the athletes and watching, and I was like, I saw his game, and I'm like, wow, this guy's got a huge game. You know what I mean? He was serving massive. He was serving volleying coming in. You know, his forehands were huge. He was returning big. He just looked like the dominant player on the court. And, you know, his ranking wasn't in the top 100, so he wasn't, don't think he was even in the singles draw, but he was fairly young at the time, you know, 22, 23, and it just really took him a little while to get established as a singles player on tour, really, Josh. You know, you look at the age now of Struff. I think he's in that sort of mid-30s now, I believe. Is he 34, I believe?
Holy.
Yeah, he's 34. But
okay, that I didn't realise.
Yeah.
Wow.
But what stood out, though, was his, his size, about 6'4", 6'5", and he really hit the serve big. You know, and his weight, 202 pounds, 92 kilograms if you're in the,
in the metric.
In the metric system. But, he was a guy that when he started to get the ranking up high enough, Josh, where he was getting into slams, obviously you're coming up against the very best players once you first come into that top 100 in the world. He just figured that it was only a matter of time before, he was going to be a possible top 20 player just because the game was so big. And when he played the very, very best, I always observed, like, he was never blown out. It was always tight. And he always made, the top 10 guys extremely nervous because he had that big serve. He was cracking, second serves, just going for broke, and attacking, wasn't afraid to come in. Always had incredible body language. So he was never negative, you know what I mean? And, he was just consistent with his body of work when he was out there, win, lose, or draw. It was the same kind of body language He was attacking. He wasn't passive at all, and just made the really top guys, really uncomfortable. So it was really, when you saw Struffy, it was like, okay, I wonder how high this guy can go, because there's a big game there. There's a big game there. And it was concerning when he fell out of the top 100 there. I've noticed that he was playing some challenges. He might have been upwards of 12 months ago. So I know his ranking was up in that, sort of top 30 area, fell back. So, he was injured, but now he's back. He's back. And it was great to see. Like, I'm just stoked that a guy like that, as we talk about, so hard to win ATP, one ATP tour title on the tour when you're out there. And a guy such as that not only has been able to win one, but he's won one in his home country.
The Bavarian Open at Munich.
In Munich. When that's probably, we see what happens with Struff moving forward. But, when it's all said and done, he's probably a very, very happy man to say.
Like, a career highlight.
Yeah,
or one of.
Unbelievable. When you're looking at guys like, he gets none of the attention there in Germany. We know who gets all the attention over there in Germany. But, Struff, clearly one of those guys that, you see him on the practice court, you see him playing doubles and you go, man, this guy's a heck of a player.
Yeah.
If he can ever string some results together and stay injury-free because he's that big frame, I think he could be top 20, and he's right there. He's knocking on the door.
And we did talk about earlier just people having peaks. Like, he's having his peak at 34.
Right. And after clearly some injury problems and some niggles where, you're at that age of 34 and you go, oh, man, look, I've been top 40. Do I really want to do this? You know what I mean? And not only has he done that, but his results over the last 6 months, he's been beating everybody.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Over the last 6 months. And then, as I said, to win that event, he beat FAA there in Munich. He took out Fritz in the final.
Well, he beat Holger Rune.
Severely. In the semi.
And I'm pretty sure he bageled him in the second set. I'll just double check. Yeah, 6-2, 6-love versus Rune, who was the number 2 seed.
Yep.
Although in that particular tournament, Struff was the 4th seed.
Yes.
But in most people's minds, there's a big gap between Struff and Holger Rune.
Yeah. Well, you look at those 3 results and you go FAA, Holger Rune, top 10er, and, I'll bet another top 10er in Taylor Fritz to win the title. Thank you. Thanks for coming.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So that's what guys like that are capable of. And that's what we talk about here on the show in terms of, that peak performance. And he was able to produce that, and that delivers him a 250 title.
And the game against Fritz, it'll be, obviously I'm not remembering a lot of the games that I've seen, but it would be one of the probably top 20 or 30 games where someone truly looked unhittable. Everything he was hitting had a touch of magic to it. And that's a game that he's been working probably his whole life to have a run of a couple of matches where he was truly unplayable. Because the serve has been, other than, your Medvedevs or your Novaks or maybe earlier in his career like an Andy Murray or just a great returners, they're probably not so worried about the serve. Most people, his whole career, have been concerned about how massive that serve is. But I didn't even honestly, Colfie, know that he had any other game. But then to see him hitting these shots, particularly against Fritz looked as frustrated as I've seen him look. Just, what is going on here? Like, these are magical shots. So if anyone's out there and you haven't watched even just the highlights of the Struff Fritz game, just watch it and just look at these shots that he's hitting and how close to the line they are. But pay special attention to Taylor Fritz, who generally I see him as someone that doesn't let himself completely crater out on motivation, like lose all his joy. Seems pretty locked in, even if he's not playing great. I've never seen him look that way.
Yep.
Like, I shouldn't even be on the court right now. This is pointless.
Yep. Yeah, and Struffy has the ability to do that to players out there.
Yeah.
He's similar to that mold we talked about Lehechka in part 1. And, Struffy's one of those guys that, big game, strike first tennis, whether I'm playing on a grass court or I'm on a clay court. And that's where the Fritz frustration comes from, because this guy, man, he's just hitting laser beams.
Yeah, they were.
And you look at the match time, 1 hour, 20 minutes for, on a clay court final, scoreline 7-5, 6-3, looking at one break each set. That's a quick match, hour and 20 minutes, and Struff, so when he's in that frame of mind, he can take the racket completely out of your hand.
Yep.
And that's what he did for 3 matches against top 10 players that have been in the top 10. And, you know.
But they're all different kinds of players too. He didn't have a run of beating all certain kinds of players that are certain types of athletes. There's some real variance in the types of games that those guys play and what they like to do and how tactical they can be. Rune sometimes will verge on genius level tennis intellect and then devolve into you thinking that he's not making a clear decision to save his life. But Taylor Fritz is someone I see as who can, even though maybe his game can't always replicate the changes he wants to make, he doesn't get stuck in one pattern for a whole game. He seems like a pretty switched on, I mean, I wouldn't say he's like a Medvedev level tennis intellect because very few are, but he does try to vary his game up and it didn't matter in that match.
And Fritz is one who's, you know, he's got, ever since he burst onto the scene as the number one junior in the world, you know, he's had unlimited resources at his disposal with the USTA and, you know, he's working with, you know, Paul Annacone.
Cultures and strategists.
Yeah, exactly right. You know, Paul Annacone's does some work with him for quite a few seasons now, not in a direct sense, but still is there as a sounding board and, you know, can sort of in a consulting capacity. I think Michael Russell is his sort of week-to-week coach that travels with him. But, you know, Fritz has got all the, you know, all the bits and pieces that's needed to be a, you know, a major champion. That's the whole purpose of this with the USTA. So, as you said, but when you get a guy like Struff who, you know, is in that frame of mind and he has the ability to, you know, that just goes all out the window. You know what I mean? Because when, you know, hit ball, see ball at incredible speeds, you're going to have to deal with that. You know what I mean? And I know when Struff may have been around about probably 2017, 2018, somewhere around there, when I was doing a little bit of work with the Kazakhstan Tennis Federation, where I was doing a little bit of work with Bublik. I spent a lot of time with our good friend Craig O'Shaughnessy. Shout out to Craig O out there. And he was actually, that Australian Open was actually working in the Struff camp with a little bit of strategy. And I was talking to Craig O about, I think he had Novak first round. I think there. And I was talking to Craig about that, and he's like, yeah, man, it's all guns blazing, man. He's just going to hit big. We don't want any rallies over 4 points. You know what I mean? He's going to serve big. He's going to, you know, hit the forehand. He's coming in. He's going to keep coming forward, you know, and played a great match. Struff played a great match. The numbers, you know, the data came in and all the numbers were fantastic. Of course, he went down in, I think it was 3 tight sets. Really, really tight match. But, you know, Craig O was like, couldn't have played the match any better. You know what? If we weren't going to play that style of tennis, we were never going to win anyway. You know, against arguably the greatest player ever. So, you know, since then, you know, Struff had learned to go, look, you're not going to be a guy that just rallies and pushes the ball back. You're going to play big. You're going to play your 6'4", 6'5" frame and come forward and volley. And that you talk about the double success that he had. You know, he was able to take that double success and transfer it onto the singles court, where that style of play makes these guys uncomfortable, like we just saw there, where he wins Munich, where, you know, whether it's a clay court or not, I'm going to hit the ball and I'm going to attack and I'm going to come in. I'm going to hit big second serves and I'm going to win, lose or draw. I'm going to be happy with what I dish up out there. And Fritz gets frustrated. He's got all the resources in the world. You know what I mean? That's what makes the game so tough, man. You get guys like Struff that play such a big game and, you know, they perform and it's a long day in the office.
Yeah. So I just want to finish up super quick. There was a challenger that you mentioned was coming through, a younger player that you had your eye on, and you've been teasing this, I think, and you sent me a few results. The kid's got a big game.
Yeah, well, you know, we talk about players finding their feet on the ATP tour. You know, you say your FAAs, you know, your Shapovalov back outside the top 100 now and maximising your time when it's there, because if you don't, there's just a wave of talent that's just coming through at the back, you know, and we can use Alcaraz as an example. You know, he arrived very, very quickly to the level where it was like, man, this guy's like top 10 in the world in 12 months, 18 months of, you know, playing, you know, main draw matches on tour and slams, you know. So, you know, we'll get onto some of these youngsters from the Czech Republic who are already top 100 in the world, who are already getting top 20 wins at ATP tour events. You know, so it's really interesting, some of the, you know, the challenger results. And I saw, you know, we know French tennis is booming right now and it's going extremely well. And, you know, coming up to the French Open, I've especially said there a couple of weeks ago, I'm really curious, and we'll take note of this and we'll collect the data. I'm really curious as to how many French male players, let's just say the males, we can check the females as well because I know they're having heaps of success, but how many French male players are in the main draw at this year's French Open? Including wild cards and qualifying and that kind of stuff. They're probably going to have 12, 13 automatic selections that get by on ranking. But with the wild cards that they have access to, I think there could be upwards of 25 French players in the draw of 128, even 30.
Wowzers.
Like, it's crazy. It's nuts. So French tennis flying, Italy, Italian tennis. Let's take a look at Rome. How many they're going to have in Rome in the draw? We know they're going to obviously have some heavy hitters in the automatic entries, but when they have access to wild cards, how many can they have in the draw?
Yeah.
The wild card argument's a whole nother ball game. We'll get into that too. There's heaps of content on that.
Yeah.
But I just noticed one of these French youngsters that's coming through. The first thing I noticed, Josh, was just the sheer size, the sheer size of this athlete.
Massive human.
So write this name down, okay? If you get yourself a pen and paper, okay? Giovanni Mapecci Pericard of France, okay? So Giovanni Mapecci Pericard, age 20 years of age, height 6'8" or 203 centimeters, okay? So 6'8" or 203 centimeters, and weight 216 pounds or 98 kilograms.
Whoa.
Okay, so 98 kilograms. So he's from Lyon. Okay, he turned pro 2021, so looking at about 3 years ago. So 17 years of age, turned pro, got a one-handed backhand. I think that's also exciting. Okay, but what stood out to me was watching, checking out some of the highlights and watching on the Challenger circuit, some of the results. This youngster won back-to-back Challenger events. Okay, over in Mexico, or on the hard courts. The first leg of that swing, that Challenger swing, I noticed in his 4 matches up until the final, he'd served about 100 aces.
Holy moly.
In 4 matches up until the final. So he averaged about 25 aces per match. Okay. And then won the final, about 120 aces for the week. And then he backed that up the following week. Didn't serve as many aces, but still took out the title in, I think it was Acapulco. I think they actually beat young Australian Adam Walton in the final, 6-3, 6-3. Actually beat Walton back-to-back weeks.
Okay.
So, and he didn't serve as many aces in the final. Walton was able to sort of neutralise that a bit more, which also tells me that he's got game to back it up as well, because he won that final 6-3, 6-3, only served the 4 bombs, and you look at the numbers, the first serve points won, 26 of 32, 81%. Second serve points won, 10 of 14, 71%. Did not face a break point. So we talk about get your act together on the main tour, because before you know it, if you haven't got your act together, you got talents like Giovanni Mapecci Pericard, who's 20 years of age. Soon he's going to be in the rankings at 124 now. He's going to be knocking on the door of the top 100, and no doubt he's going to be in the French Open draw, because if he doesn't get in directly, a wild card no doubt will go his way, and you're going to be dealing with that. 6'8", 98 kilograms, and serving absolute thunderbolts at your head.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's exciting for French tennis, but that's the kind of talent that's out there that you get to see when it's established.
And these giant servers, these kids, they're coming up knowing that it's not enough anymore. I need more game than that. I need to be running around on my forehand minimum to try and hit some of these shots and at least have a backhand that can hold up, which an example, like Zverev early on, he had that. He just had a brick wall. He maybe couldn't do all the things he can do with it now, but he had it. It was solid. I'm not going to get broken down on my backhand, even though I've got this giant serve. This kid's 3 inches taller again. And knocking down aces like they're going out of fashion. But I remember watching Berrettini, and his ace count would just fluctuate early on. And I was thinking, no, he's still winning all these games. Sometimes he'd have 16, 20 aces, and the next match he'd have 10 or less, but he was still winning. It meant he had something else. Giant forehand.
So
giant
forehand, and happy to come forward and volley and finish points at the net, which is important. But hey, this guy's got a one-hand backhand as well, so I'm really excited that
that's a beautiful shot for the press, and it's maybe seen as being the way they talk about it. Shapovalov has one, obviously Tsitsipas has one.
Yep.
And this young French kid has one. It's seen as being like the beautiful throwback shot, almost, particularly if you can hit it at a high rate, like, you know, Roger or Stan Wawrinka or someone that's just out of this world accurate. If he's got even any level of accuracy with that shot, he's going to be in all the press. He's going to be highlights all over all the reels, knocking down serves and hitting one-handed backhands. And they're going to be loving that. So even he's going to be in there, because when have the French ever had a 6'8" bomber server?
Yeah, it's
like I can't think of any giant French servers. I mean, Gaël Monfils has an incredible serve, but I wouldn't say it's coming from 6'8".
Yeah, and the French, you know, I mean, you got Humbert's their highest ranked player right now at 14.
Yeah.
In the world, you know, so they've got great depth.
Yeah.
The French, but you know, they wouldn't be happy with that. They want guys in the top 10.
Yeah.
You know, don't you know, for the listeners of the show, you know, don't get it confused. You know, nations such as you know France, Italy, obviously the USTA in the United States, and you know, and even Tennis Australia. You know, it's an arms race. They want slam champions.
Yep.
You know, they want slam champions because that's what grows the game in the country. You know what I mean? So I don't know. You know, I know that the French system of the way of doing things over there, their tournament structure and those kinds of things, you get nothing but positive reviews about it. Those that have experienced it over there, and you know, they're definitely, you know, doing amazing things over there because the depth is there. But you know, you see a French player who's just announced his retirement in Richard Gasquet, who was touted for amazing things from 7-8 years of age. You know what I mean? Never was quite able to win a major championship because he kept running into Roger Federer in semis, or a Novak Djokovic, you know, was right there, was a top 10 player for many a year, you know.
Another beautiful backhand.
Yeah, another beautiful backhand. So, you know, they're looking for, you know, major champions, as are all these nations. You know, Monfils is another one. Monfils won 3 junior Grand Slams in the 1 year.
Yeah.
He won 3 of the 4. Number 1 junior in the world. You know, his highest ranking, he got to number 5 in the world. He lost to Novak 18 times. I don't think he's ever beaten Novak Djokovic, you know. So, incredible athlete, incredible player. It doesn't always, 3 major championships in the 1 year, you'd think that it would translate to, you know, I'm going to win, you know, a back pocket full of major trophies at the pro level. Didn't happen, you know what I mean? So, you know, get these kids that come along, you know, how high can they go? That's what it comes down to.
That's it. So, if you want to help us get higher and go further, we'd really appreciate you sharing the show with someone that you know that loves tennis. Hopefully, we're giving you guys what you want, but if there is something specifically you want to hear a little bit more about, I know we keep teasing that we're going to talk about these guys, but really, through Rome, we're going to have a much better idea where everyone's form's at. Novak will be back. He's going to put some of these young people to the test, and there's going to be more of the top people all in the draw, and then into the French. But we definitely are going to be talking about some dark horses. And obviously I've probably showed my cards a little bit that I think Bublik is one of them. But you talked about Humbert and a few other people that are also going to be dark horses. So we're going to talk about some guys going forward. And once again, if you want to help us out, just share the show. Righto. Thanks, Kolf, man. It's been good.
See you next show, Josh.